So for thousands of years, spiritual gurus, philosophers, even, those mindfulness apps on your phone.
Right. They're everywhere now.
Yeah, they've all kind of sold you on this one fundamental idea, and that is the secret to ultimate peace is to completely destroy your ego, to just, like, lose the self.
Which is pretty much the standard advice.
Exactly. But what if they are entirely wrong? What if erasing your specific individual self doesn't bring enlightenment, but actually, unravels the entire fabric of the universe?
It's a massive philosophical pivot. We are really taking the most common wisdom in the spiritual world, that the self is the ultimate obstacle.
Right.
And we're examining an argument that actually places the self as the very anchor of reality.
So today's deep dive is centered around this fascinating, honestly, incredibly provocative essay titled The Self in All Things. It's by Shuifeng and edited by Kinyu. And our mission today is to unpack a really serious collision of ideas.
Yeah, it's quite the collision.
We have the traditional Buddhist concept of anatta.
Right, the idea that all phenomena are selfless.
Exactly. And crashing right into that is this author's radical stance, which is, without your individual identity, the cosmos means absolutely nothing.
And to understand how the author justifies this, we kind of have to start where the text starts, which is surprisingly a concession.
Oh, right. They don't just completely reject the old ideas out of hand.
No, so Feng actually agrees with the universal philosophy up to a certain point. From the absolute highest perspective, what we might call the Tao of the universe,
Okay.
the concept of selflessness in all things is technically accurate. Like if you zoom out far enough beyond time and space, nothing has a permanent, isolated selfhood.
Everything just possesses this uniform, Taoic nature, I think it's called.
Exactly. Just uniform Taoic nature.
Okay, I hear that, but practically, that sounds miserable. I mean, if everything just boils down to uniform Taoic nature, doesn't that make the universe a giant, flavorless cosmic smoothie?
A cosmic smoothie. I like that.
Like, if you take all the vibrant ingredients of reality and you just throw them in a blender and hit puree until there are no distinctions left, you don't get transcendence, you just get this gray, featureless sludge.
Yeah, and that is precisely the counter-argument the essay builds. The author is essentially saying, yes, the cosmic smoothie exists, but who wants to drink that?
Literally no one.
Right. The fundamental premise here is that if you entirely remove selfhood, the universe reverts to chaos and nothingness. The self isn't a barrier to reality. It's the mechanism responsible for the distinct layers, the structured complexity.
And all the different forms we experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without a self, there's no distinction between anything at all.
Wow.
The text illustrates this by looking at nature. So grass has a specific, grass nature.
Right.
Flowers possess a flower nature. Mountains and water have their own inherent natures. And this extends to us, too. The essay uses the examples of Zhang San and Li Si.
Which is basically the Chinese equivalent saying John Doe and Jane Doe.
Yeah, exactly. The origin of the differences between Zhang San and Li Si lies entirely in their distinct selfhood.
Okay, but let me push back on that for a second. Couldn't you argue that Zhang San and Li Si are just different genetic expressions? Or, like, environmental products? Why do we need a mystical self to explain why two people are different?
Well, because the author isn't just talking about biological differences. They're talking about the subjective experience of existence.
Okay.
If all things were truly fundamentally selfless, there would be no boundary between where Zhang San ends and Li Si begins. There wouldn't even be a localized consciousness to recognize a difference.
So the self is what draws the boundary lines, which, brings a lot of dignity to our normal everyday experiences.
Yeah.
We get told so often that human struggles, our anxieties, our joys, our heartbreaks, that it's all a failure to be sufficiently detached. We're told to strive for this, like, flat line of bliss. But looking at it through Shuifeng's lens, those ups and downs aren't a bug in the cosmic system.
No, they are the entire point. It's the passion given by nature. It's actually the mechanism of creation. The essay connects this to Descartes' famous proposition, I think, therefore I am.
Yeah, the classic.
But it takes that idea and stretches it across the cosmos.
Right.
Without a self, there is no consciousness. And without consciousness, there is no thinking.
And without thinking, life can't yearn for a better future. There's no motivation to evolve or create. The universe would literally lack a witness.
Precisely. It would be completely empty.
Okay, so the self is necessary because it gives the universe an audience. It gives reality its flavor. I mean, that makes sense philosophically. But the essay goes much further than that, right?
Oh, much further.
It argues the self isn't just sitting in the audience eating popcorn. The self is actively constructing the physical reality.
Yeah, that is the crucial leap the text makes. It transitions from philosophy to the actual mechanics of reality. The author brings in a well-known esoteric concept from the Seth material.
Oh, from the 1970s, right?
Right. It's a philosophical framework that heavily popularized the phrase, "you create your own reality." The text aligns this with a fundamental Buddhist tenet. The three realms are only mind, and all phenomena are only consciousness.
I always stumble on that phrase, honestly. All phenomena are only consciousness. It sounds incredibly poetic, but how does the author logically ground that?
Well, Xuanfeng leans on some highly debated concepts to make this point. For instance, the essay points to quantum mechanics, specifically the observer effect.
Okay.
The author's interpretation is that in the microscopic world, the behavior of particles changes depending on the intent of the observer, and the text defines that observer as the self.
Just to play devil's advocate here, from a strict physics standpoint, observer usually just means a measuring device, right? Not necessarily a conscious human.
That is a very important distinction to make, and it's a fiercely debated topic in science. But for the purpose of this text, the author is fully embracing the interpretation that human consciousness directly collapses the quantum wave function.
Wow, okay.
Furthermore, the essay brings up claims from Japanese researchers regarding water molecules.
Oh. Is this the idea that if you speak nicely to water, it forms pretty crystals?
Yes, exactly. It's a reference to Masaru Emoto's controversial experiments. He claimed that the crystallization of water is physically altered by the consciousness, or like the mindset, of the person observing it.
Right.
Now, while that's highly criticized by mainstream science, the author uses this as a foundational pillar for their argument. The idea that physical matter is entirely subordinate to the self.
Okay. Setting the microscope aside for a second, I actually think the author's next point about social dynamics makes this idea way more accessible. You really don't need to understand quantum wave collapse to see how the self dictates reality in a living room. Well, think about a family dinner. You have 5 people sitting around a table. The mood is fine. Everyone's relaxed.
Right.
Then one person, a highly agitated self, walks into the room.
Yeah.
Their energy, their words, their specific selfhood immediately shifts the emotional reality of everyone at that table.
Oh, absolutely.
The group harmony is entirely dependent on the individual selves participating in it. Reality on that micro level is 100% constructed by the dominant consciousness in the room.
That is a very grounded way to understand the text's macro concept. The feelings and the environments we derive from phenomena are intimately tied to our mindset. The essay points to all of these examples to indicate one cohesive theory reality is nothing more than a projection of self-consciousness.
Yeah. And there is a famous Zen story the author uses to really hammer this home. The 6th patriarch of Zen Buddhism, Huineng, he encounters 2 monks arguing about a flag blowing in the wind.
Yes, I love this story. One monk insists it is the flag that is moving.
Right.
The other monk argues that it is the wind that is moving. So Huineng steps in and says, "It is not the flag moving, nor the wind moving, but the mind moving."
I want to unpack the mechanics of that because it's so easy to just nod at Zen quotes without actually understanding them. Let's try an analogy.
Okay, go for it.
Imagine you're at a movie theater. Usually you view yourself as the person sitting in the dark chair, watching the reality of the movie play out on the screen.
Right, a passive observer.
Exactly. The wind and the flag are on the screen. But Xiaofeng is arguing that you are not the audience member. Yourself is the projector lens.
Ah.
Without that localized, specific lens focusing the light, there is no movie, there is no flag, no wind, no screen. You aren't watching reality. Reality is pouring through your selfhood to become visible.
Which creates a massive philosophical friction.
Right.
Because if yourself is the projector lens and reality only exists because of it, then why do thousands of years of spiritual teachings constantly demand that we smash the projector?
This is where the essay gets brilliant. The author points out an absolutely hilarious linguistic trap that spiritual seekers fall into every single day.
Yeah, it's so true.
Just listen to the language people use. When someone says, "I have reached the state of selflessness," or "I have finally lost the self and am at ease,"
The paradox is just glaring.
it's impossible. Who is the I that is feeling at ease? Who is the one bragging about having no ego? It's the ego.
The text asks very logically, without the self, how could there be a state of selflessness to even experience? Even if you look at the most elevated spiritual goals, like attaining supreme enlightenment or wishing to be reborn in the Pure Land.
And for context, for you listening, the Pure Land in Buddhism is essentially this ideal, blissful realm where enlightenment is much easier to attain.
Exactly. But the text points out that wanting to go to the Pure Land requires a self to do the wanting, the seeking, and the going.
Right.
If there's fundamentally no self who is experiencing the Pure Land, the entire concept of spiritual progression relies on an individual thread of consciousness moving forward.
So how does the author resolve this? I mean, if the Buddha taught selflessness, was he just setting a trap?
Well, Suifeng redefines what selflessness actually means in practice. The argument is that ancient masters didn't teach selflessness to convince you to literally erase your existence. It was a tactical tool.
Yeah.
It was meant to inspire you to let go of self-attachment.
Okay, wait. What is the functional difference between losing the self and losing self-attachment?
But attachment is the rigid way you define yourself against everything else. It's your prejudices, your narrow views, your ego-driven demands that the world bend to your specific preferences.
Got it.
The text argues that abandoning those attachments is how you uncover your true nature. You aren't destroying the projector lens. You are cleaning the grime off of it so the light can shine through perfectly.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And what happens when the lens is perfectly clean?
According to the text, that is when you attain nirvana. And, to use the author's specific phrasing, you roam freely in 36-dimensional spaces.
36-dimensional spaces. That sounds like a sci-fi novel. What is the author actually getting at there?
Right, it does sound wild.
Yeah.
But when the text talks about roaming in 36-dimensional spaces, it isn't charting out a literal geometry problem. It is an esoteric, metaphorical way to describe a state of consciousness that is completely unbound by our normal, limited, three-dimensional reality. It represents ultimate perceptual freedom.
Wow.
But the incredible irony that Xu Feng points out is that this ultimate freedom, this supreme enlightenment, it all serves the self.
That is the ultimate plot twist. You are letting go of the rigid, fearful attachments of the self entirely so that the self can have the most magnificent experience possible.
Exactly.
You know, it reminds me of Lao Tzu's concept of wu wei. I've always heard wu wei translated as non-action. Like you just float down the river and do nothing.
The text tackles wu wei directly to correct that exact misunderstanding. Wu wei is not passivity. The essay clarifies that the true meaning of the concept is non-action, yet nothing is left undone.
How does that actually work in practice, though? How do you do nothing but get everything done?
It is about changing how the self operates.
Yeah.
Instead of an active forcing hand trying to manipulate reality, which is self-attachment,
Right.
the self becomes a pervasive, natural presence. It flows with the grain of reality rather than against it. The essay issues a very stark warning here, actually.
What's the warning?
It states that if you pursue pure, literal selflessness, like trying to obliterate your identity, it doesn't lead to enlightenment. It just leads to emptiness, extreme passivity, and extinction.
Yeah, so we have successfully rescued the concept of the self from the spiritual chopping block. It's not the villain, it's the necessary projector. And trying to destroy it is a philosophical dead end.
Completely.
But this brings us to the most crucial part of the essay. Having validated that we actually need a self, what are we supposed to do with it on a random Tuesday?
Yeah, the practical application. The text shifts from validating the self to offering a blueprint for evolving it. Suifeng introduces a dichotomy between two states of being, the small self and the great self.
Okay, what are the distinct characteristics of the small self?
The small self is exactly what most of us experience daily. It is characterized by endless suffering, anxiety, and hardship.
Sounds familiar.
Right. It is hyper-focused on its own survival, its own immediate desires, and it sees itself as fundamentally separate from and often at war with the rest of the universe.
And the great self?
The great self experiences boundless joy and happiness. The goal of all spiritual practice, the text argues, is simply the transition from the small self to the great self.
I mean, I love the sound of boundless joy, but I need the logical bridge here. How do you actually execute that transition? Evolving the self sounds great, but what is the practical shift in perspective that the essay demands?
The author provides a specific methodology, which they call opening the Dharma eyes and the Buddha eyes.
Okay.
To do this, you have to radically alter your visual and mental perspective. The text instructs the reader to practice upward and downward vision.
What does that mean, upward and downward?
It means you must actively try to view the world of humans and gods from the perspective of plants and animals.
Okay, practically speaking, how do I look at a traffic jam or, like, a spreadsheet from the perspective of a plant?
It's an exercise in decentering your human ego. If you look at a traffic jam from the perspective of an oak tree, the urgency, the anger, the human timeline entirely dissolves.
Oh, wow.
The tree experiences time and space entirely differently. And simultaneously, the text says you must take the viewpoint of humans and gods to view the plant and animal kingdoms. You have to occupy multiple layers of reality at the same time. You survey all realms.
Let me use a video game analogy to process this because that is a massive cognitive leap.
Go for it.
Living strictly in the small self is like playing a video game where your camera is locked in a rigid first-person view. You only see what's directly in front of your face.
Right.
You're solely focused on your own health bar and your own immediate enemies. Your field of vision is incredibly narrow, which is why you constantly bump into walls and suffer.
Because you lack context for the environment you are in.
Exactly. But doing what Shufeng is suggesting, occupying the perspective of the tree, the animal, the human, the entire environment simultaneously, that is like putting in a cheat code that unlocks the camera.
I love that.
Suddenly, you have an omniscient 3D map of the entire universe. You can zoom in on the specific struggles of Zhang San, but you can instantly zoom out and see how Zhang San is connected to the forest, the mountain, and the cosmic smoothie.
The essay actually uses a term that perfectly matches your unlocked camera analogy. It calls this state holographic thinking.
Holographic thinking, I really like that.
Yeah, in a hologram, every single fragment contains the image of the whole. By adopting holographic thinking, you aren't destroying your individual self. You are realizing that your individual self contains the entire universe within it.
And what happens when a person actually achieves this unlocked camera, this holographic thinking?
The text concludes that this is the moment you grasp the true nature of all things. You become adept, you attain divine status, and most importantly, you perceive the Dharma body of the self permeating all phenomena in the Pure Land.
Let's define Dharma body for everyone listening, just to be crystal clear.
Sure. In Buddhist philosophy, the Dharma body or Dharmakaya is the absolute unmanifested truth of reality. It is the fundamental essence of the universe.
Okay.
So the author is saying that when you evolve into the great self, you realize that your core essence is woven into the fabric of literally everything.
Let's pull all of this together because we have covered some massive philosophical ground today. The core takeaway from Shufeng's essay is a total rebrand of your identity. Yourself is not your enemy.
Not at all.
It is not an obstacle blocking you from enlightenment. It is the vital, required lens that gives the universe its structure, its meaning, and its color. It's why we have the uniqueness of individuals, the distinct nature of the mountains, and the movement of the wind.
The text makes it very clear. The mission is not to erase who you are. The mission is to expand who you are.
Right.
To move out of the claustrophobic suffering of the small self by dropping your rigid prejudices and to evolve into the great self through holographic thinking.
Realizing your connection to every single layer of reality. Which, leaves us with a fascinating, slightly mind-bending question for you to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Let's hear it.
If the ultimate goal is to achieve this great self through holographic thinking,
Right.
and if doing that means you suddenly perceive your own selfhood permeating absolutely everything, the oak tree, the water, the person next to you in traffic, then does the boundary between you and everyone else actually exist at all? Or is it possible that ultimate selfhood, where your identity encompasses everything, and ultimate selflessness, where your isolated ego is nothing, are actually the exact same state of being, just viewed from different ends of the telescope?
That is a profound paradox.
Yeah.
If you are everything, the concept of a separate self vanishes entirely, yet the self remains all-encompassing.
Thank you for bringing your completely unique, indispensable self to our exploration today. Keep practicing that holographic thinking, look at the world from a few different angles, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.